Hello and welcome to this week's Property Matters, the show that brings global trends to an Irish audience to help shape your knowledge of the industry. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@ipropertyradio.com. Your hosts today are myself, Brian Fox, and Emma Hayes.
Thanks, Brian. One interesting news headline this week was, according to a piece in the Irish Times on the weekend, Chris Jones asked, could Irish mortgage interest rates go negative? He wrote that a Danish bank has structured a 10-year mortgage product that carries a negative rate of interest. Apparently, 20-year mortgages can be had in Denmark for zero interest costs. In another news headline, there has been a significant drop in the number of people saving for a mortgage deposit. According to a piece in the Irish Examiner, an opinion poll published 2 days ago found that the number of people saving for a mortgage deposit dropped from 22% in August last year to 10% now.
And yesterday, another piece in the Irish Examiner reported how building and construction growth has slowed to 6-year low. Construction activity grew at its weakest pace in nearly 6 years last month, the latest survey of the sector shows. There still hasn't been an extension announced for the mortgage help to buy scheme, and RT reported that the Banking and Payments Federation Ireland has called on the government to extend the help to buy mortgage scheme beyond the end of the year. And finally, Dublin's planned Metro line, which will run from cities north to the south side, is looking a step closer today, as reports are saying that the Transport Infrastructure Ireland is advertising a contract for a concept architect to work on the Metro Link project. The Irish Examiner reports that building is expected to begin in 2021, and it is hoped the first passengers will be on board in 2027. Oh,
okay.
Seems as
great, Brian.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. That was a great recap of the property news of the past week. First up in studio with us today is David Byrne, Director at Lisney Estate Agents. You're very welcome in the studio with us today, David. I'm actually delighted to have you in here because I was looking at Lisney's earlier and I see they're 80 years in business, which is some feat.
We are 80 years in business. We've been around for a few property cycles, all right. Yeah. So, and most recently here in Dundrum itself. So we're spread across Dublin and Cork.
Yeah.
You've been in the office now in Dundrum Village, eh?
We're actually in Dundrum Village now, coming up on 5 years, in fact. So we have 5 branch offices across Dublin and an office in Cork. Which
right. So it's nationwide?
Nationwide, yeah, no, indeed.
And I mean, you have been in business a long time, haven't you? I mean,
we have.
Certainly 10, how many years? I was going to say 10 score.
Well, the firm has been in business over 85 years.
I thought so.
Wow.
Which is, I guess, in some respects, quite a remarkable achievement, given the highs and lows of the property market and the economy generally over that time.
Even at that time, never mind the time now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, quite categorically. So, I mean, it's interesting. We have a benefit of that is the incredible research that we have holding data going back that far into
I was going to actually come to that.
The property market, and I guess not that many firms have research going back that far. So.
And where did you originally start? Was it Dublin?
We originally started in Dublin, on on Kildare Street and then on St. Stephen's Green. And it was primarily a commercial firm at the time. Oh, really? Initially, and then developed into a commercial and residential firm. So it's now a multidisciplinary firm.
Was your grandfather, I take it then? Was it your father?
No.
Sorry, excuse me. Not your grandfather. You're one of the directors, excuse me. It was... well, it's obviously not family owned anymore, is it?
It's not family owned. Right. No, it's privately owned by a group of directors, as it were.
Directors,
so
it's
it's not my own family business. I wish it
was. Be true. I saw there that it's the largest Irish owned full service property service company.
That's right.
Yes,
it is.
Which that's incredible. So you have a great reputation in providing these services over the years.
We have a very strong reputation, and I'm proud to say. I mean, I guess it's something that we take pride in and are very careful to maintain, and that's, I guess, sometimes a challenge in property and in business generally. But our reputation is absolutely to the fore in the minds of what we're doing in Lisney. We almost feel we have a responsibility, having a firm that's 85 years old, to maintain the ethos and drive the firm forward. With that same ethos. So.
Yeah, Yeah, no, it's incredible. I wanted to ask you about the macro-prudential rules about the central bank for mortgage lending. Just want to tell us more about it, because our listeners, I would imagine, don't know a huge amount about it. So I thought it could be something that you could touch on.
Yes, of course.
To explain it to our listeners.
In February 2015, the central bank introduced macro-prudential rules around mortgage lending. And they were introduced, should I say, to enhance the resilience of the borrower and the banking sector. So the intention wasn't to particularly meddle with the residential market, but essentially what it did was it restricted a borrower's capacity to borrow a certain amount when purchasing a property to essentially 3.5 times your income. Now, there are exemptions above that in terms of being able to borrow a little bit more, different exemptions for first-time buyers versus second-hand buyers and indeed investors. But it's loan to value and loan to income, which they were primarily interested in. Essentially, it was actually quite a sensible move on behalf of the central bank at the time. Property prices had been escalating quite exponentially in double-digit growth for some time. And I guess there needed to be some kind of sense check brought into...
Some control, yeah.
Some control, yeah, exactly.
So that's what it did.
And how do you view it now, David?
I mean, I guess I view it favourably in the same way that I think it's an important control to have. I mean, what we don't have now is a credit-fueled property market, which is what we had, and we all know about in the last crash. They are reviewed every now and again, so the last review was 2018. And I guess it's just to ensure that the metrics are correct. But essentially it is, and it has, anchored property prices or certainly aligned it more towards affordability, which is where we need to be. So property price growth has gone from double-digit growth in 2014, 2015 to, in the last year, probably modest growth of 1.5%.
But isn't it true now, I mean, that many young folk now, that there's not a chance of them owning a home at this point in time with the salaries they're on and with the indications at the moment, the way the economy is going as well, and also this nervousness over Brexit as well?
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot of factors in play at the moment. I mean, if you think about the macroprudential rules for a moment and you think about a 3.5 times combined salaries, and say there's two people in a house earning the average salary of 50,000, that's 350,000. I mean, it's kind of almost alarming to say that in South Dublin, that doesn't provide you with a huge variety of housing. So certainly something needed to be done to temper the price of houses, and that is having an effect. I suppose the other side of that is that supply needed to increase, and of course that's a gradual fix, as it were, and supply has increased. So I suppose both combined, we probably have seen a softening in property prices in actual fact. On the ground. I've heard that
from a few people.
So statistics, I guess, are one thing. My job on the ground is selling houses, and our experience certainly over the last year to 18 months is we've noticed prices coming back gradually.
Has that been more realistic then, do you think, that with prices coming down?
Yes.
It is.
It is. I mean, I guess there's a number of factors. Look, I think we all feel good when we own a house and we feel that the value of our property is increasing, and I think we take a bit of comfort in that, and having come from such a low base where many people have been in negative equity, I guess there's maybe an understandable hope that your property would be worth a little bit more than it actually is. So there is an element of sometimes unrealistic expectations amongst people looking to sell their houses. But the market is very honest, as we say. If you place a property on the market and it remains on the market, unfortunately, you will have to adjust your price.
For too long.
And
we do see that. I suppose some people have spoken about, like, if you don't price the property correctly, you may not get that early, viewings in. And
absolutely, So the market has become critically price sensitive, and it's quite simple, really, in some sense. If a property comes to the market and it is priced beyond where the market is at, those properties tend to sit on the market.
Just in relation to that, what's turnover like at the moment? Are houses sitting on the market at the moment? Generally, the tendency, are they sitting on the market, or are they selling quickly?
So 2018 was a year where we noticed properties sitting on the market for a longer period of time than average.
But they would have been a higher price, maybe. Sorry to cut across you.
Quite right.
Yeah, maybe so the ones under 500,000, I think, and I know Dublin prices are obviously higher than, say, out rural areas and stuff. But obviously, price dictates that as well, how quickly it's going to sell.
It does. Yeah. I mean, in fact, there's a two-tier market in Dublin. I guess there's the first-time buyers market in Dublin, which is a very rapidly moving market.
Yeah.
That market has a very strong momentum to it with huge demand and maybe limited supply. So that market is continuing to perform quite well. But as you move up to the middle and the upper end of the market, affordability is really stretched. And as prices were remaining at strong levels last year, houses were slower to sell. But what we found was by the end of last year and into the beginning of this year, vendors were beginning to become aware of what was happening in the market. There was more reports in the media about what was happening. And so there's a greater understanding. And as a result, prices have adjusted and therefore houses are transacting again.
I think consumers are definitely better. They're better knowledgeable. They're more knowledgeable now because we have the price registers, and everything like that. And I think that definitely allows people to learn better.
It does. There's a huge amount of information there.
Yeah, and the media. Every day we see news headlines, property ones. Indeed. Actually, at some points you can't keep up.
In terms of moving up, say, hypothetically, you're in Dublin at the moment and you want to move up. With all the economic warning signs out there, shall we say, Colin, at the moment, what would you recommend doing? Is it hold on to your property now, or do you sell now, or what do you sell before you buy? What would your recommendations, that sort of area, be? It's
very difficult to recommend, in fairness. I mean, I think, the great unknown, dare I say it, is obviously a hard Brexit, and I think it's very difficult to predict anything with regards to that. That will be a nervousness, I guess, that will be present amongst the autumn market. In terms of holding your property or selling your property, I mean, I think the fundamentals of the Irish economy appear strong. There's strong foreign direct investment. Indigenous companies are performing well. Wage inflation is at about 3%. So, there's a strong underpin on the Irish economy. I guess essentially what I would say to someone is now a good time to buy a property. It is if you can afford to buy the property, if that makes sense. If you can, if you can calculate a risk and hedge what a downturn might look like, and you can still afford to buy the property, and it's the right time for you for whatever reason, then now is a good time to buy. But I suppose my question really is, to you is, isn't there a danger that prices will slip even further? Absolutely.
So you're hedging your bets on it, I suppose, are you? You are hedging your bets, but I think it's very difficult to pinpoint any time in a moving market, such as the property market, as to when is the absolute correct time to buy, if that makes sense.
I would agree with you.
But prices rarely over the years have remained static in residential property. So it's a difficult call. I mean, I guess we find in the residential industry, whether you're selling a house or buying a house, it's largely dictated by circumstances in your life. And, if you have a young family and you need somewhere larger to live, then waiting 5 years to see what Brexit is going to do isn't
so there's no point in sitting it out then, really.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And equally, people, living in large houses where the house is too large for them, they're paying high property tax, utility bills. Again, if now is the right time, then now is the right time. I would have said it's actually a more stable market now, believe it or not, than it has been for some time, because we've seen this adjustment happen over the last 18 months, and there seems to be a stabilisation occurring currently in the market.
Well, the old chestnut then, what should you look out for when you're buying a property?
I mean, it's interesting, I suppose, now in terms of supply in property, you have new homes, which are very attractive in many respects, probably principally due to their energy ratings, and I think this is going to be a very interesting area going forward.
The help to buy, which may or may not be extended, as we
the help to buy,
still not confirmed.
Absolutely, it's it has been very efficient in helping.
I think it's only up to 500,000, though, isn't it?
It is, yes. So it's 5% of the value of the property, or a cap of 20,000.
Yeah.
And it's an assistance.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to first-time buyers.
Oh no, it is
looking
absolutely.
for a property at that price. It's definitely a good option.
Yeah,
definitely.
and I think there's many buyers, indeed hoping that it will be retained into 2020.
Yeah.
But new homes are certainly a good proposition for people in terms of energy efficiency houses. Older houses traditionally could be in more established parts of the city. So I mean, just in terms of your question, what are the things that buyers should look out for? Energy rating, I think, is an important factor, and I think it will become increasingly more important as we progress with climate change, etc., and rightly so. In terms of second-hand stock, the cost of construction has increased quite considerably over the last number of years. So I think if you're buying a second-hand house, it's always worth having a good detailed survey of the property. If the property needs work, we would always recommend that a buyer has a builder in to look at the house actually before they make an offer in the house, so that they're fully aware of the additional cost of refurbishing a house. But, you know, principally, I suppose people will decide on an area of choice. They'll obviously have a budget, which will restrain them, and lifestyle. And then it's down to personal choice in terms of what type of property suits you.
Yeah.
And what would you say to the to a person out there that's on an average salary and looking for a property in Dublin, north or south? I mean, where are the areas to look at the moment, would you think?
I mean, I think there is obviously a broad variety of areas that you can look in. I mean, invariably it often means moving further out of the city centre, which can add to commute times, which is difficult. There is certainly an increase in new homes being built on the periphery of Dublin, which are quite often attractive to first-time buyers. If you go down towards Kildare, where the N7 has just been upgraded, I guess transport infrastructure links are improving. But equally, you know, there are parts of Dublin that are very sought after and equally accessible to Dublin as you move west over towards Rialto, Dublin 8, Dublin 12. These are all areas that would be, you know, long established Dublin residential locations where I guess there is a turnover of houses now. They tend to be smaller houses, but we've seen people buy them and do absolutely fantastic jobs with them. And I guess maybe the compromise is you have a smaller house and a smaller garden than you would if you went further out of the city, but you have a shorter commute time. So it depends what your priority is.
Just one final question I want to put to you. It's got nothing to do with property whatsoever. What are your own thoughts, or do you have any thoughts at all on the new governance coming into the Central Bank of Ireland in relation to what you know about him, what you've heard about him, or anything at all on that one?
I mean, I guess all I would say is obviously I'm aware of all the conversations in relation to him. I would say that all I would hope is that he would maintain the consistent approach towards the property market that the previous governor, Philip Lane, has. I think it's very interesting, not to change tack on your question, but there was a review of the central bank regulations last year in 2018, and I think there was a lot of pressure being put on the central bank to change them, and the bank took quite a sensible, reasoned approach. So. As to the person, I can't probably comment.
Do you think it's difficulty adjusting to the Irish market from the New Zealand market, really? I suppose that's what I'm... Or do you think that he'd be well advised by his...
I have no doubt he'll be well advised about the Dublin residential market. I mean, the Dublin residential market is nearly worldwide known at this stage.
Yeah.
I saw a feature in the New York Times about it yesterday.
Yes, that's true, yes.
So.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, Dave, very good talking to you. That was David Byrne, founder of Property Bridges.
Lisney. Lisney Estate Agents.
Yes, sorry. So stay tuned for Fiachra Morrison is coming up next. He's a strategic hypnotherapist and a counsellor and mind coach and founder of the Dublin Hypnosis and Therapy Centre.
Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Oh, will you look at them go? I wish I had their energy.
They're good for the soul, though, aren't they? I can't imagine life without Lucky. But he might outlive me yet.
Oh, well, take my advice and sign up for a Dogs Trust Canine Care card. It's completely free, and it's given me such peace of mind since I did.
What's that?
Well, it's simple, really. It means if you pass away before Lucky, Dogs Trust will take him in and give him the care and love he needs until they match him with the perfect forever home.
That sounds terrific. How much did you say it costs?
It doesn't cost a cent.
Great. How do I sign up?
Just text CARE to 50100 and they'll call you with more information. Or you can go to dogstrust.ie.
Well, that's wonderful advice. I'll do that right away. Here, Lucky. Good boy.
Whatever loan you're looking for, wedding loans, holiday loans, car or home improvement loans, make sure you talk to your local Capital Credit Union, where there are no hidden charges or early repayment penalties on your loan. Loans subject to approval, terms and conditions apply. Capital Credit Union Limited, regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Senior Line is a confidential telephone service for older people. Free phone 1800 80 45 91. We're open every day of the year from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m, including Christmas Day and New Year. So it's free phone 1800 80 45 91. We're there if you need someone to talk to and need someone to listen. We're older people too, so we will understand, and we're very good at listening. Did you get the Senior Line number? It's free phone 1800 80 45 91.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to Property Matters here in Dublin South FM with myself, Bryan Fox, and Emma Hayes. So back in the studio now, you can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio, email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. As mentioned before the break, we have Fiachra Morrison. Fiachra is a strategic hypnotherapist.
That's right.
I got it this time. Counsellor and mind coach and founder of the Dublin Hypnosis Therapy Centre. So it's good to see you back again, Fiachra.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
And, I suppose with newspaper media coverage of the state trying to see what they can do about getting people back into the workforce at the age of 50, how do you, dealing with stress at that age when you're being forced to a career change can be difficult?
Yes, I think any career change at any stage, but particularly at the over 50s, and I'm on that side of the bar, so it is a little more personal for me. But there's a huge amount of stress, because stress generally is generated when you feel that, well, when you don't have the control that you want, where you're kind of like where you don't have a balance that where you can actually make decisions for yourself. So when there is any kind of a career change, in effect, like, you're being put into a situation where you're not comfortable with, where you're not in control, and because of that, there's a huge amount of emotional stress going on, apart from the physical stress of it all, and it's in that respect that hypnotherapy can be a huge benefit to people who are going through that.
Right. Yeah. So. How does it work for them then? How can it work for them?
Well, when people are going through that kind of stress, it's like when somebody wants to get fit physically, they have to go to a gym, and now they can do their walking and their exercises as normal. But if they want to kind of actually get to a level of fitness where they want to be healthy, then they really need to go to a gym, go to the experts who can help them and guide them in that. And where that's emotional stress is that with hypnotherapy, like we do have an expertise in allowing them or helping them and teaching them to build up not just a resistance, but an acceptance of where they're at first, but to be able to manage that stress so that they can move in a direction then that will become more natural for them. Where they're not fighting, where they're not in conflict with it. Now, there is always going to be, especially when one part of their life has been stopped, and now they have to take up again and maybe reskill, re-educate, or whatever they have to do. So in that, and they're going into new, uncomfortable, maybe sometimes, or unfamiliar territories. So giving them the resources, giving them the ability to be able to manage all of that so that they can get through it with as little stress or with as little of that conflict as possible.
Yeah, no. Well, I know in the property industry and construction industry, obviously a lot of people, they have a lot of stress in their lives, as we know. And I've heard a lot of people that are in construction, they kind of move forward into a new career because obviously they might have got injuries, or there might have been something going on in their work, like in construction, say if it's tiling, plastering and other kind of areas. So when they are, I suppose, how does that affect you when you're kind of in that kind of, you have to change career, it's being forced into doing something completely different? Well, like, what is your kind of take on how do you start with that?
How to start is really just to work out yourself first off, what you can do, and what direction that you can go in, because it's when you have a change like that, whether it's because of injury or some other reason, you've got to sit down, take a breath and reassess like where you are, so that you can start making those decisions in a much better, much more focused and a much more effective way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I know from talking to a few people, they find themselves in this kind of like conundrum of not knowing where they're going, or in some cases, some people do just want to change career, as we know. Like, you know, they might just want to get away from something they've been doing for years, and I suppose it is a huge stress, and it's just helping them kind of get the strategies in place to be able to manage it, I suppose, and go forward. And
part of what we do in our clinic is in just bringing them back down from the high emotional, stress, to where they're actually able to start to work out themselves. Now, they already know themselves what their skills are, what they're capable of, or even what they want to do, because it may be something that they that they're going to have a total change in direction. And with that in mind, they also have kind of all the other things that they would naturally have to take into account about family life and their own, personal stuff. But what we're there for is to help them to be at that lower emotional level, so that they're able to think more clearly. They're able to focus, because in our mind coaching that we do also, we're actually doing that, where we're bringing them from where they're at now to where they want to go, and then filling in the gaps in between, because they're the ones who have that, who know where they want to go. So we just facilitate them in bringing those into reality.
Yeah, no, it's very good, and I think it's really hard when you do change career. I think like we've all probably been at that stage at sometimes, and I think in property and construction and everything, it's always even more difficult, I suppose, because it's a difficult sector. It is mentally straining at times. Like we know that it's obviously planning construction. It is a hard old job. I suppose what I'm saying is, what's the first appointment like when someone comes to you and that first point of call? Like, I suppose how easy is it for them? I suppose what I'm saying is it's very hard for people to reach out. I think I think that's one of the biggest things. And how do you feel? Over the last couple of years, are you seeing a difference in people coming to you needing help, like compared to maybe 10 years ago? Are people becoming more aware of these kind of issues, and are they more open to reaching out?
Well, I think there is certainly a change in that, in the type of people coming. But what we do find quite a lot is that they, as you said, they do find it hard to reach out, but they go through so many other avenues to resolve or to help themselves, and a lot of the time they come to us as a last resort, because they've tried everything else. They've gone down the other avenues and haven't found any resolution. So when they come to us, they're at that stage where they're almost at the hopelessness stage, and just say, well, look, maybe this will work. And it's that first session then is basically bringing them from that high level of emotion down to what's more manageable for them. Okay, and we pride ourselves on actually doing it in a very gentle but a very effective way, because it's not. We have to keep in mind that it's our client who is the most important. Okay, we may be able to see where they can go, but it has to come from them. We can't be putting our agenda onto them.
They have to have their own view, I suppose, and an idea of where they want to go and how to go forward and everything. If they've taken a hit, they're probably low in confidence as well, so it's rebuilding on that as well.
But bringing that anxiety or that frustration, that stress levels down to where it is more manageable, they then have the ability then to think in it more clearly, in a clearer way, so that they can start making those decisions. And in that same session, then we do actually build on their own self-esteem, their self-worth, because they have a huge amount of resource already. They've done so much. They've got to where they are, and it's easy to get battered and bruised right through. Especially when there's, in this industry, that there's so much, and really people don't appreciate what what does go on in this sector. There's so many who are kind of, I suppose, the unnamed kind of casualties.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of this sector as well, I mean, construction is very much a young man's business, really, in terms of being on the site and so forth. How prepared do you think many people are, from your own point of view, of knowing that the game is up, really, and that your employment prospects are pretty limited once you hit 40 or 45 in the construction business?
Well, I think from my own experience dealing with people, there's very little preparation. But I think it's I suppose because when you've been working in a particular industry for such a long time, and it's a passion, and it's something that you like and you love, and
you're skilled at it,
and has provided you with the lifestyle, or even to pay your mortgage. But with that, it's very hard for anyone to turn around at any stage to say, okay, well, now it's time. It's really like kind of cutting off your arm, because you're so familiar with it. It's such a been part of your life, and none of us want to, at any stage, to make a decision and say, okay, now I'm past it, because that in itself is a huge hit to your own self-worth and your own self-esteem, and that's why we focus on that, to build that back up again, because when you have that stress level low and you have a much healthier self-esteem, then you can actually now have a good combination to have that clarity, to have that focus, and to make those decisions.
And I guess those people are very used to being extremely busy, because, as we know, planning, property, construction, all these sectors, they're very busy sectors. Like, you have people that are probably up early in the morning. So to change that's a really big thing to kind of get over, from the sudden of like getting up at 6 a.m. out the door, and it's consistent, like 5 day a week. Maybe people who work in 6, especially self-employed people, they probably don't even take any kind of off time. So I suppose it is a huge conundrum to kind of get over, and probably not the easiest thing. And like you said, if they're not preparing, I think the reason why they don't prepare for it is probably because people are so busy. You don't really think all the time of what's ahead. And I think we're all very much probably guilty of that, even though we like to think we're prepared. Sometimes we're actually not overly.
And when you've been there for so long, like you do have a sense of control. You have a sense of, kind of ownership of what you're doing. And that's when it is coming to that stage, and you're dead right, you're so busy, you don't actually get a chance to contemplate what's next.
I mean, would you, Fiachra, when you're in these sessions with people like that, that are coming to the end of their natural career span, would you recommend going back to college, or going back to some? Would you see that as being your job to recommend, or
no?
It's clients.
It's actually we're not there as counsellors or career counsellors, and it's important to understand that, because
specify the difference.
we don't. That's not our expertise. There's so many other people out there who can give them the proper advice. Where our expertise in actually kind of bringing them back to that level of balance, of control, so that they have that, that they can make those decisions with greater clarity. Then,
and going away from the construction industry, are you seeing many people, and I'm saying people, coming to you at that sort of middle age, at 50, looking for some sort of guidance? I don't mean vocational guy. I mean
hypnotherapy.
Hypnotherapy and hypnosis and therapy in general.
Well, a lot of people anyway are going through, when we get to my age, where we go through this kind of like, well, we've kind of lived your life, you've got so far, and there's, I suppose, a little bit of a complacency sets in, that you're not quite retiring, but you're on a good wicket. And with that, it's when the realisation happens that, well, actually things are not quite as, both personally and relationship wise, and in their own socially, that they do find that realisation that it's not, it's not as fluid as they want. And particularly when it comes to relationships, whether it's just socially or personal, it does have a huge impact, because it's I suppose it's the first indication for them that they really are out of control. Not out of control, but they're not as in control as as they would have been.
Of course, I suppose it's got to be borne in mind too that career changes aren't the only things that can knock a person back. It could be the end of a marriage, or aren't they that as well?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And in that, like, it's any sort of change.
Or bankruptcy, or whatever. Yes,
yeah, any change in life. It's like people do go through a grief process. You know, that there is a loss for them, and many people don't realise that that's actually what they're going through. That in that grief process, they have to go through those stages without even realising what they are. Now
that could be very painful, I'm sure.
Absolutely, but it's very confusing. It's very confusing both for them and for the people around them, particularly their families, because they don't know what's going on. The families don't know what's going on, and it causes such an amount of stress, of anxiety, of frustration and conflict, both within themselves and in the relationship. So for bankruptcies, loss of it goes right across the spectrum. Yeah.
Anything that causes anguish to us, and all these things are life changing.
Absolutely, it's
any life changing events will definitely cause people to.
And hypnosis can be very helpful for that type of
situation.
Hypnosis
is excellent because in hypnosis we're dealing at the emotional level. Okay, like where you have the conscious mind, which is very logical, linear, and all of that. It doesn't have the capacity to actually go into to understand those emotional parts. Okay, so in hypnotherapy, because we work at that level, we're able to, in some cases, just to neutralize some of that high anxiety, that those high emotions. Other times we can just transform it so that instead of holding people back, that it can actually start to help them to drive forward. And because it's a very simple process. It's not obviously like what you see on the television shows and that, but it's a very personal, very it's very intimate for them because it's them. It's the client who's actually guiding the process.
And if it just to before finish, can a person feel very exhausted after a hypnosis session, or what's the general feeling? Is there a feeling of being refreshed?
Well, there's because obviously people will have their eyes closed. If they don't want to have their eyes closed, we can do it with eyes open. There's no and it has no negative impact. But usually after a session, they're actually very rejuvenated and a bit more energized because we're working at a different level. We're not working when they have their eyes closed and we're doing the work in the session. We're not doing nothing physical, but at that deeper level, it's like having a deep nap. Okay,
sounds
but it's much more effective.
Obviously refreshing,
and very, very much so. So that when they are invigorated, energized, and and because of what we've done, because they will have. They've had a huge impact even on that first session. That they will go out with that sense of hope, a little more control and a little more balance.
Okay, Fiachra, can you tell us where can they find out more if they want to find you on the website? If anyone's listening in and they're saying, I could definitely do some hypnotherapy.
Well, our website is hypnosisandtherapy.ie.
Perfect.
And we're in the city centre, we're in Fitzwilliam Street. And for the purpose of this show, if it's okay with you, for anybody who does want to come along, even just to ring us and make an inquiry just to see how we can help. But for this week, we're going to give a 20% discount for anyone who mentions the show.
Oh, very good. Okay, brilliant. Thanks.
So we just want to put our money where our mouth is, and make that.
I'm sure
a
lot of people hopefully will take you up on that. It sounds very good, and hopefully. Okay, thanks very much, Fiachra. That was Fiachra Morrison, clinical hypnotherapist and founder of the Dublin Hypnosis Therapy Centre. Thank you for talking to us today, Fiachra. Stay tuned after the break as we will be talking to Nick Polley, managing director of the 3D Design Bureau.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
Could you and your dog spend 1 hour per week bringing special moments to people in care centres? Or would you like one of our volunteer visiting teams to come and visit your care centre? At Irish Therapy Dogs, we have a dedicated interest in the use of pet therapy for people in long-term or daily residential care. A professional organisation aimed at providing a pet therapy service on a national basis. If you with your dog would like to get involved, or if you would like one of our visiting teams to visit your care centre, then please call us on 01 544 6198 or visit irishtherapydogs.ie for more information.
Do you need a professional-looking website or graphics for your company? Does your current website work on all modern devices, such as tablets and smartphones? If not, you are losing business. Preamp Digital Media provides a full range of solutions to give your company the edge in today's digital world. Please visit www.preampdigitalmedia.com for all the information you need. That's www.preampdigitalmedia.com.
I've always provided. That's what I do. Even when the job shut down, I somehow managed. But the pressure chips away at your confidence. I felt alone. I needed to talk things out. I learned Samaritans isn't just for when you hit rock bottom. I'm glad I called.
It's always worth getting problems big and not so big off your chest. Call Samaritans. No pressure, no judgment. We're here for you. Anytime, talk to us. Free call 116 123 or go to samaritans.ie.
Broadcasting to South Dublin on 93.9. This is Dublin South FM.
Come back to Property Matters here in Dublin South FM with Emma Hayes and myself, Brian Fox. So as mentioned before the break, in the studio now with us is Nick Polley, Managing Director of the 3D Design Bureau. So Nick, very welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
I'm fascinated to find out all about 3D Design Bureau, because my associations with 3D is, I suppose, what you hear about and see about and movies and all the rest of it. How does that apply now to the construction industry and business in general?
Yeah, I suppose it's been around for 20, 30 years, you know. Like, obviously a lot of people would see CGI, computer-generated imagery in movies and shows and stuff like that, which is a lot of motion graphics. In terms of the property industry, it's all around digital construction. So my own background, I'm a building services engineer by profession, and I fell into the world of digital 3D about 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And then set up the business in terms of, it was called Third Dimension back in 2000. And since then, we went through the boom. We've gone through the bust, and we're now sort of reinventing.
And how do people take to you? Because, I mean, there wasn't much talk of digital production at all back in, well before 2000. I mean, it must have been a baptism, a very tough baptism.
Yeah, it was kind of a new concept. When I say new concept, it wasn't mainstream, you know. There was a lot of CGI imagery, so computer-generated imagery we would have done. So we work with clients from early design phases of a project through to planning and through to marketing. And we're kind of, there's two elements to it's kind of like the brain. Our work is creative and technical. So we do some very technical imagery, and we do the likes of daylight analysis and stuff like that for
saw that earlier.
property.
I was really interested in
that.
Yeah,
So that's really interesting. That's becoming very prevalent now with planning and you know, I suppose better living conditions with inside proposed developments and the impact developments might have on the surrounding environment in terms of lighting. So that's a very technical aspect. But then we do lovely imagery and animation and virtual tours and virtual reality on the marketing side as well. But VR as well, virtual reality is coming into the planning side as well.
Yeah,
so
it definitely is, and AR as well and everything. So you're in a very, VR is definitely very big at the moment.
Yeah, VR is big. Well, VR
it's getting more recognition.
I think what happened was about 2 years ago, VR, there was a lot of noise around VR. And there's still that hurdle about the hardware that you have to wear for VR. Yeah. And that's changed. So I always kind of likened it to a 10-lane highway where all the manufacturers are on this race, but there was no finish line. And a lot of people passing each other out. Whereas now AR, augmented reality, is kind of more accessible, and it's on the smartphone, it's on tablets, so it's more accessible for people and consumers to use as opposed to VR. But don't get me wrong, VR has got a place within our industry and within other industries as well, even like the likes of healthcare and stuff like that.
Definitely.
But it's still, I think, went through a lot of talk about 2 years ago and kind of has fallen off a bit and is starting to be talked about a bit more again, like, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting area.
So it's basically second nature then, I suppose, to estate agents at this point, is it using?
Yeah, VR, I think so, yeah. So there's so much technology around what we do now. Like, I've seen our industry shift quite significantly, even in the last 3 or 4 years. from the software we use to the skill sets to processes to the hardware, all that's changing. It changes at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And like, I suppose my role within my business is, I suppose, trying to see that stuff happening. Like I'm very lucky. I've got a brilliant team around me, and I took on a lot of advice through the years. It's always surround yourself with the best people who know more than you, who can do the job better than you. But it's. I suppose everyone knows it, but probably not everyone implements it. But I do. I do my best to do that, and we've got a great team. So I kind of look to what's happening, but we have to be constantly moving.
Evolving,
I'll give you a perfect example. We came up with this idea about 3 years ago where we wanted to be able to do virtual tours of as-built, so homes, right? And we spent 6 months developing this idea, and my brother-in-law who lives in France sent me a link, and he said, have you seen this? Because I was talking to him about it, and it was a link to a company who literally just like they were like the Rolls Royce of what we were trying to do, and who had just got funding for $250 million and now have overtaken. It's called Matterport, and we do a lot of Matterport virtual tours where we go in and we scan show houses, or we scan gyms or pubs or hotels, and it gives you this virtual tour. But that literally overnight blew that area of 6 months out the window, and we just had to adapt, and we go, okay, well, we just take it on the chin and move on. And that's one thing the recession really taught us, is you need to be able to take hits, and you need to be able to, in our industry, because we're directly linked to the AEC sector, which is architecture, engineering and construction. Because we're linked to that, it's cyclical, and I don't think that's ever going to change. It might it'd be great if the troughs were not so low.
So how do you stay ahead then of innovation and all the rest of it?
I consume a lot of stuff online. Mainly, my go-to platform will be LinkedIn. But I tend to consume a lot, see what's happening, see what sort of noise is happening for the future, and see if it's related to what we can do, if we can implement it. And we're still going on a journey at the moment. Like, our core business has come back, which is architectural visualization and animation. But then we've the technical arm, so we do a lot of stuff for verified view montages for planning applications. So that's kind of technical, and our daylight analysis under certain guidelines called the BRE guidelines. But now we're going on a journey of getting BIM certified, level 2 BIM certified. So that's going to be a journey over the next 9 months.
And what will that entail? The BIM
well, it's the whole new way of the industry moving in terms of design and build through building information modeling. So it's kind of like it's the shift.
Getting bigger,
it's the shift from, say, when architects and designers used to hand draw, to when they shifted over to CAD systems. Now the shift is going from CAD to 3D. And what we did, we noticed, we would have seen this like even 6-10 years ago, and we started shifting our processes in terms of the software. We were always doing digital 3D modeling, but we were doing it a different way, and then we shifted to a software called Revit, which would be one of the industry leaders in terms of BIM, which is a process. But we shifted our way, so now we're kind of very well positioned to offer services within the BIM industry because of the skill sets we've developed over the last while. So
that's really good.
It's a journey.
Speaking of journeys, do you have to journey to keep up with it? Are there any countries you visit to see what they're doing, or are there any specific countries that are more advanced or more ahead of others?
Yeah, I think Ireland is catching up very, very quickly in terms of, say, BIM. There are other countries have been implementing it for a couple of decades, but I suppose that it's really starting to move now. There's, I suppose, a movement of sorts behind the industry, and there's much more of a take up, and it's kind of reaching that tipping point of where the more consultants and the more projects that it's used on, the more it's going to have to become sort of mandatory. And it is mandatory, say in the UK, where on PPPs it's mandatory now. They can't make it mandatory on private projects, because if they do, then they're going to put people out of business, But I think people's mindset, it's like anything, and it's that whole mindset and mind shift and education and stuff
evolving
like that.
with it, and there is people that are still don't really want to evolve, and then there's people like yourself that are going ahead of yourself to make sure you're safe.
Like I think everyone would love to evolve, but like, you know, there's the day-to-day running of your business, there's the day-to-day running of life, you know.
But there's also keeping ahead of trends as well, and that must be difficult.
Yeah, it is. It can be tiring, because you constantly have to be thinking, what's the next thing that we have to look out for? Like we're constantly looking at, okay, what happens if this shift, or say a policy at government level changes, you know, does that affect what we do? And some people think what we do is, oh, well, it's just CGIs. But because we have a technical side to what we do, it affects us, because we're brought in, we're a consultant, a CGI consultant, you know, and we sit beside other consultants on a design team, right from design through to planning. So if things shift, we've got to stay ahead of it, and also innovation, and also being able to identify, is it a good innovation? Like, so for example, 3D printing was like 3-4 years ago, there was just so much noise about 3D printing. We looked at it for ourselves, and we did tests, and we spent a few months looking into it, and then we just made a decision. Commercially, for us, it just wasn't viable. It just wasn't viable.
And do you see that in other countries where they have some part of 3D, which you don't think would apply to Ireland? Would that be a case in point? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think across the board, like, the benefits of 3D are huge in the property sector. Like, it's just huge. Everything from being able to convey your plans and elevations in a very succinct way. So, like, planning authorities now, like Dublin City Council, first thing they'll ask for when you go into a meeting with DCC or any of the planning authorities is going to be, show me the imagery, show me the verified view, show me the CGI, show me how that's going to look, show me the results of the impact of daylight analysis. Or, you know, they want to see it visually, because people are consuming, I think, people's, you know, attention spans in a way have become much shorter, but also everyone's so busy. So this 3D is a fantastic and beneficial way to get the message across, or to get the information across in a very short period of time. Like, you know,
it's that visual instead of the sketches. The old style sketch.
Clients of the estate agents too, how are they tuned into innovations such as they're talking about? Going into an estate agent and looking to see at
in terms of consumers going into estate agents. I think they are. I think well, like, say, for example, people going in to buy a house, you know, I think they're more tech savvy now, you know, and they expect more. They expect to be given more information about their homes. They expect to be able to view their homes online. So whether that is a virtual tour. Now, that's stuff like the virtual tour, like we do that, that's just bread and butter for us. But what it does is, it might not make a sale, right, for an estate agent, but it brings that person a step closer to a sale. It's like I suppose anything in marketing. If you can look at a car online and spin around it and stuff, and get a very informed decision before going to the dealer to talk about it and grilling them, you know what I mean? Yeah, that sort of stuff, you know. So it's about, I suppose, informing oneself about.
But like you said, consumers are changing, and they're definitely going towards the whole visual. Everybody just wants the content straight away, and they want to be able to look at it, and they want to be able to view it easily and quickly. And that's key. I think people are not going to go through pages of paper and try and look at stuff, you know. And I think that's definitely a changing. Yeah,
I think we're visual creatures, aren't we? You know what I mean? So it's, you know, if you can see that on paper, like if you can demonstrate at a planning application stage through verified views, you know, look, this is how it's going to look from these vantage points, you know, and then an informed decision can be given on planning on that. And likewise for marketing, like if you've got a, like we always try and make sure the information, the stuff we produce a lot, I suppose, is down to the information that we're given and the design that it is, you know. So there's some amazing projects we work on, and we produce amazing imagery and animation and stuff like that of, say, a new office development and stuff. But it's a team effort, because without the architect, without the designer, without the fit-out specialist, then we're sort of...
You're blind.
Yeah, a little bit, you know. And we're not, I suppose... Our company now has got like architects, engineers, CGI specialists, and we've got a very good support team underneath us as well. Like, and we've grown hugely since 2014.
That's brilliant.
Which is great. Like, but at the same time, we're part of a wider team when it comes to a project. You know,
but it seems to me sort of the business model seems to me anyway that you could apply. It seems very versatile. You could apply your technology to other projects outside of construction.
Yeah, 100%. And we work on projects like we do product animation and product rendering and visuals. And what's really interesting about that area of the business as well is, like, we had a project there not so long ago where a guy had an amazing invention for digital guitar, and he came in with a prototype, like with a guitar with a phone on the top of it, and he needed to try and convey through animation how this was going to work. So we, I suppose, made it sexy. But we had to actually sit with him for a day and understand. He had to give us a crash course in music, how it works, so that we could then animate the guitar and how it worked and give the story and put a storyboard together. And from that, using that, then he can go and try and get funding to build a proper prototype, you know. So there was another one of a multi-camera device that worked in extreme temperatures, and through animation and visuals they managed, as far as I know, they managed to sell that company. Wow. Based now, our work just was one of the components to selling it, obviously, but it conveyed the message straight away to an investor.
Visual storytelling, again,
100%. So it transfers across industries, 100%. Transfers across a huge amount of industries.
And is it expensive? Is it time consuming storyboarding and putting CGI together like that?
Yeah, like from it's funny you ask that, because we were only just, I suppose, I won't say it on radio, but having a chat about clients there recently, about some clients, and how there's an expectation of that, we might sit in hammocks and just press two keys on a keyboard and away we go, and that's it. Yeah. It's not. There's a huge amount of skill involved from, like, so we would have a modelling team, a visualization team, a post-production team, and it goes through the processes, you know what I mean? And it goes through each team. So yeah, there's a lot of skill involved.
A lot of creativity.
Yeah, there is, especially when it gets, from marketing side, yes, but there's a lot of technical stuff. So from a planning side, our imageries have to stand up and be able to stand up nearly, in an oral hearing, for example, for a planning application. If someone disputes them, to say, well, no, they're fully accurate, because we actually get survey information and we make sure that the position of the cameras are right in the software and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite technical, and we have to be able to stand over that as a company to say, no, they're verified, they are accurate, And the marketing side of stuff, there's creativity involved, but it's a mix, and that's why there's a big graphic up in our meeting room, and it is the brain, and it's the creative side and the technical side.
So many steps. It's not as simple as pressing button.
No, it's definitely not as simple as that. And we made a conscious decision, that we wanted to be creative and technical, to future-proof the company,
You must be looking forward then to the rapid development of AI.
Yeah. Do I think, like, there is some areas of our business that are looking at, automation of modelling. Do I think it'll come in? No, I think we're still going to need skilled personnel, qualified personnel, architects, architectural technologists, CGI specialists,
They're not all redundant.
Definitely not. I would.
That's good to hear. Anyway.
Definitely not. No.
Yeah, that's definitely good to hear.
And I'm sure that a lot of people out there will be glad to hear that as well. Nick, we'll leave it for now. That was Nick Polley, Managing Director of 3D Design Bureau. And as I say, thank you for joining us. So that's it from us today in the studio. Thank you for joining us on Property Matters, the show where property matters. Get in touch with the show by emailing iPropertyRadio at iPropertyRadio.com or Twitter at iPropertyRadio.
We would like to thank all of our guests for joining us here today. Also thanks to Shane Flynn, who was on sound, and our producer, Katie Talon. We are back at the same time next week. Stay tuned for Bowl of Soul, which is coming up next. From Brian Fox and myself, Emma Hayes, have a great week.